Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Talking Tradesman. In the studio with me today, I have got James from Hikitia Surface Design. James, massive thank you, mate, for giving up your time to come and sit with me today. Really appreciate it. Let's talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Absolute pleasure, mate. First thing I'm going to ask you, Hikitia Surface Design. Where did that come from?
Okay, I think a brand name has to encompass what you do, doesn't it? You know, what it's all about. And what I do, I work with Venetian plasters and add various materials, liquid metals, things like this. I cover walls in beautiful like wall art. And the idea of what I do is to tell a brand's story through that wall art.
Okay.
So, for instance, if you walk into a restaurant and you were to immediately be faced with these walls, you would just immediately know that you're in the right place. You'd automatically get that brand story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you were to go into like a nice Italian restaurant and the decor is like this sort of Tuscany villa sort of feel to it, that's what we do through this art.
Okay.
Hikitia, the word is Polynesian. It means uplifting.
Okay,
So
right, like it.
Yeah, what I aim to do is uplift their feeling, the vibrations within them, like when they see our walls or ceilings or sometimes floors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's about uplifting.
Well, that's it, mate. Yeah, let's get into what you do, because I've seen some of your work get this one in there early doors. So, place to find you, see your work, Instagram, good shout.
Instagram is probably where I really push most of our work. I do dabble in the other ones. I'm really rubbish at kind of getting around to them all.
Mate,
it's hard
consumes
work,
a lot of time. I'm finding this with the podcast, in fairness.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm going to ask you to spell it out for the listeners because Hikitia, it doesn't sound like it spells, does it?
No, that's probably right. It's quite normal to me now, but it's Hikitia, Hikitia Surface Design.
Go and check out the work that James does. I'll put your details in the episode description anyway, so it should be as simple as just scroll down, click on the link, it will take you to James's Instagram page.
Much appreciated.
But yeah, man, let's start off with the work that you do and explaining a little bit about that. Because a lot of what you do, as you know, I'm a painter and decorator. What you do is art. It's like, I take it they're all one-offs, all bespoke.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. We do get offered to do jobs that are quite generic, lots of square meterage. To me, the stuff that really fills my heart and the stuff that I like to take on is at the same time where the business means, the word means uplifting. It has to also uplift me. I have to feel really motivated to take that job on, So when something comes in, it might be really, really small. But if I'm really eager to do it, you'll be able to tell it in my face.
Okay.
I'll be like, yeah, we'll do that. Even if it's tiny, just something I want to be involved with. I'm massively inspired by nature, architecture. These are the things that they sort of fill my heart with joy. So if I can express that through my work, that's the work I really love to do.
I'm already picking up on a lot to do with your sort of like ethics and business through, this brief part of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
It seems very much that it's driven by the passion for what you do.
Absolutely. Everything I do is always follow my heart. I think sometimes it's very easy in this world to get stuck in our own heads. We can think with this a little bit too much. Sometimes I like to come out of this and then dip into this. They say that the heart whispers when the mind's always screaming. When you go into here, this is telling you what's the real answer.
I like that, mate.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, that's deep.
It is a little bit. Yeah.
I like that though. I tell you what, man. I like to try and keep these conversations relatively chronological. So we'll explore what you do as a business and how that's grown and how you sort of manage and cope with that. But let's go back to the beginning, where it all started. And talk about that side of things. So, first of all, what area-wise you're from?
Yeah, I'm from the the southeast, so just southeast of London, really. A place called Rochester.
Okay.
We've got like an academy down that way, but then that's where we're based. So it was important for me to be sort of based around London. That's where most of my work is. However, I chose not to live in London. I think
Mm.
this is also something that it's when you're living in that environment, it's easy to get bogged down in the just almost like very rat racy.
The pace of London is
Yeah,
extraordinary. So my wife's
yeah,
from London originally, and she loves it. She feels like she goes home when she goes down there. It's not for me.
no,
You know,
no,
even, I mean, where I live now, we're 20 miles south of Birmingham. Even Birmingham city centre's too.
yeah,
It just feels like it's just constant go, but not just go, foot to the floor,
hmm,
like full on acceleration. Just everybody's busy, everybody's rushing.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
yeah, it's not a vibe I would like to live in.
I think similar to you, we're about 20 miles outside of London, and I really, really need that because I even find when I'm working in London too much, as in early starts, late finishes, after a while, I just get stuck in this little race and I need to get out. I need to go for a walk through the woods. I need to just have a little bit of
Mm,
time in nature again. Otherwise, that creativity just blocks. And that's what I feel I really, really need for my work
mm,
is creativity because every two sides of our mind, right? And one side's the logic, it's the right, and it's the determination, earn all of these things that we have to do. And then on that right side, we have the creativity. And I think, well, when one side is working like full pace, it's
mm.
hard for the other side to even creep in. So when we're constantly just like, right, work, 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 that creativity doesn't come in. And yeah, that really starts to show in the work, I think.
With your work, when you get a customer come to you or a client come to you and request a piece of work, do you take full responsibility on the design?
Some clients come to us and they're pretty sure from the beginning what they want. Um, what I really, really love is when a client, and this doesn't normally happen immediately, normally takes a little while to like warm them up.
Mm.
But we've got clients who we've worked for years, and then now they're happy to say, "This is yours. We know that you're going to take this and you know do the best with it." Then they'll want some. They'll give us some creative rain. For instance, I would rather sit down with a client, and I don't sit down and say, "Right, what color do you want here? How big is this bit going to be?" I would say, "Right, how do you want to feel when you come into this restaurant? What do you want a client to feel?" And from there, we'll kind of work backwards from that,
Okay.
you know. And then I'll draw an inspiration. I build like a board. I like to sit down with the designers at the design process, and like when they're putting together that mood board, sit down with them
Mm.
and help towards that.
It's a skill in itself, that, James, because I mean, I find this in my industry. It's quite often you'll come across clients that don't really know what they want. They know they want it to look good, look nice, and all those
Mm,
generic words.
mm.
But they don't really know what that means to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just yesterday, we were with a client, and I think we end up getting drawn into a lot of other aspects on the job as well because we're there to do like the Venetian plastering, or do this lovely feature wall in this room here.
Mm.
But after a while, they realise that you have a knack for what you're doing, and they're like, "What do you think of this paint we've chosen for this?" And before you know it, you're choosing like the bed headboard material, and
Yeah,
I've become almost like their designer. But
yeah,
I'm no interior designer for sure. These guys are really really good at what they do, as you know, you work with many yourself.
yeah,
But after a while, you start to pick up on it, and I think by looking at other people how interior designers work,
yeah.
I like to be involved a lot earlier on, rather than someone present me with a mood board and just
Mm.
say, "Can you replicate that?" I'd like to really kind of get in and see if we can make something.
You know what,
You
mate?
know,
It's one of those. It's a funny industry, interior design. I do work with some fantastic designers that are really skilled, really talented. But I've spoken to quite a few of them on their origin of how they got into it, and quite often it's just they fall into it rather than choose the path. I mean, best example of this that I can think of many years ago, I worked for a chap in Somerset, and he was flying. It was some variety of almost like a celebrity interior designer. The client had his own helicopter. He was a very high flying solicitor, and he would fly to the south of France to pick up his designer to come back,
hmm
bring him to the house, and then he would
well,
stay over for 2 3 days, design and monitor the progress. The whole He'd got a big grade listed property that was being renovated top to bottom, and barns and the rest. And would fly this designer over, and there was a quiet moment where the designer was in the room with me, and I got to talking to him. I just said, you don't mind me asking, how did this start? You know, and his story was he'd done his own garden. He'd just landscaped his own garden. No experience. He was like a city worker. He'd landscaped his own garden. A neighbour had liked what he'd done and had asked him to do a design for his garden.
Mm-hmm.
So then that had spiralled and he'd started doing garden design. Then somebody had gone, well, you've got a flair for design. Can you do my
Wow.
house? And that was the origin of it. So it wasn't this sort of like, educated at.
Yeah.
I don't think there is. I mean, academically, people talk about Oxford and Cambridge for academics, but there's no like, oh, I went to such and such a interior design school, is there, that I know of?
I know a couple of designers who have said this is what I want in life, and they've gone for that, and that's what they've ended up doing. But actually, don't you think that that's kind of what happens in life anyway? With a lot of these things, sometimes you kind of, I mean, my job I do now, I didn't really actually know it existed. I mean, technically, I've made up a job because, there is this. You could say a job title of Venetian plasterer. You could, but actually, a lot of the stuff that I do now is very difficult to really put into that category. Then this is why we call it surface design, because it encompasses a lot of things. We do like line washes, stuff like that. But this crosses over into your field, right? Into painter and decorator. And I think you just it's when you like hit these crossroads, isn't it? And you sort of think, how did I get here? This wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah.
But like these little mistakes, like your guy there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is life, isn't it? And I think that's where
I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
When you pull that thread and you're just open to seeing where it goes.
Yeah.
I mean, me being sat here is another example of that.
Yeah.
This was one of those, just started off with an idea a year ago, and now I'm sat in a high street studio, which is, it was never ever intended.
Yeah.
Don't know how I got here. Still don't know how I'm here, to be honest. But that's the beauty of it.
That's it. We didn't know we'd be talking,
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. But this is, again, one of the beautiful things for me is I'm getting to meet some incredible people, and everybody I sit down with and talk to, I'm learning from. So it's a fantastic, privileged position for me to be in, to host these episodes.
Yeah, it's important to always be open, isn't it? We never finish learning. It's always important to
100%, mate. So I can't think of anything worse than being in a position where you do feel that you've finished learning. Yeah, because what else is there to do then?
I agree. Yeah,
that's one of the beauties. I imagine that I'll be learning right up until my deathbed. Yeah. Because that to me is the purpose of life, is to that's why I love speaking to the older generations, because it's not that they're necessarily super intelligent. They've just failed a lot more than everybody else and learned from those mistakes, hopefully. And that's why they've got these gems of knowledge that they come out with. It's through life experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Speaking of life experience, mate, let's go back to the beginning of yours. One of the interesting things when you reached out to me initially to come on the podcast was that you told me you started your career life, as it were, as a graffiti artist.
Yeah, graffiti, it came into it at some point. So I guess it goes back a little bit further than that. So through school, I did okay at school, but I was always the student, just doodling, scribbling. And
Art's always been...
Yeah, it was all art. It was always sort of towards the art, and I was paying attention in my art classes and in like design technology, stuff like that. But when it came to the academic studies, I was like, oh, this isn't for me. And luckily, they came to me fairly easy. So I kind of coasted, and I'd spend that time doodling. And then I remember the teachers having a word of us and pulling us to one side and saying, "Look, James, if you just spend your time doodling, you're not going to amount to anything. Like, I hate to see you sort of wasting it away." And then I even had some like input from family as well, saying, "Yeah, look, even like so and so in our family, they've got an art degree, and it's really hard to make something of that." And but I had it in my head, and I was thinking, no, or was it in my head? I don't know. It was just like an inner knowing. I was thinking, but that's what I want to do. Something like this. I work with these, not with this. So I found that a little bit like conflicting. And then, I was always intrigued with like spraying, and I started to kind of like work with like various materials first, always like working with different materials, and then got into spraying, and then, getting some cans from Halfords, and then like just like doing these little pieces, like tiny little.
So were you doing like the illegal tagging sort of that? Was that where it started?
Yeah, it started with the really ugly tagging, but then after a while I was like, no, like starting to get into like doing like really good art pieces.
You get drop out somewhere here now that you're Banksy.
Can we cut that
That's it. Edit that bit.
out? No, I mean, and again, like with Banksy, like there's so many like different styles, and it was difficult to research it then because there wasn't the internet. Probably showing my age, but there wasn't the internet to research any of this. It was like books and stuff, and then no, just doing my own kind of style. And then after a while, kind of sourced like some more cans, and I was thinking, you know what, like the feeling again, it's that word uplifting. I'm uplifting spaces, like through my wall art. I mean, someone whose wall it was, who I sprayed on, would probably disagree with me right now. But I felt that I was uplifting moods by looking at these beautiful art pieces, and little did I know that that was kind of the direction that I was going to end up going down.
Yeah.
Now it's difficult. I mean, people are now doing really well. I mean, Shoreditch, you got guys earning great money doing
Yeah.
graffiti, and they are incredible. But then what I ended up doing was, well, what I look back and find out was that was telling me something to follow a passion, and about uplifting spaces, uplifting wall spaces. And that didn't have to necessarily be through a can. I started to, finish school. I went, fell into plastering, just happened
So
to.
did you do traditional plastering
Traditional
initially?
plastering to begin with. Yeah. And I got to, I wouldn't say top of my game because like I said, you're always learning, but I got to a very good standard very, very quickly. People said to me, you've got this straight away. So after a little while working on my own, getting a really good name for myself, building up a really good business. And to be honest with you, I could have stayed on that path and just had a very nice, consistent earning, had some guys working for me as well, going really, really well. But there was something that was just like, it's not enough, not enough. And I was like, it's only so sharp you can get a corner, only so perfect you can get your corners to marry up, only so flat you can get a wall, and that just wasn't enough for me. So sometimes I like to kind of experiment with it, like to put like textures into that plaster and like to put some little like judder lines in it as if it's like always been there, and started throwing some dyes in and stuff. I didn't know that Venetian plaster existed at that point. And then further down the line, I bumped into these guys on site and saw what they were doing. But it was a very close shop. Didn't want to give anything away. Didn't want to like help you out, I was like, what are you doing? What's that? What's that? And they weren't giving anything away. It's like further down the line, I started looking at like courses and stuff, and it was really difficult to get into. Very expensive to get into, and you had to go to Italy. So, but I kind of knew that that's what I wanted to go into, but there was just the access to it was very difficult. And then a few years later, it revisited me. I thought, you know what, I'm going to look into that. And then there were two companies in the UK that were teaching it back then. And I thought, I'm going to give that a go. This is what, this feels right. I'm going to go for this. And yeah, the rest is history, I guess. I wouldn't say you do your first course and become a Venetian plasterer from day one. It's just not possible. As you know, you don't just come out and you're qualified.
Of course, yeah,
You've got to do
yeah.
a lot of fuck ups, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I guess you're doing like an odd little media wall to begin with, something small, and then after a while, larger, and then after a while, you find there'll be another training course on another finish, and then you kind of add to that. And then I would say that you kind of look at the first jobs that you were doing and thinking, oh, what was I doing then? Like this is it. And now I would say that I've managed to form a career out of what I was doing before. So adorning walls with my wall art with the can, but now I'm doing a job where I'm paid to do it and I'm not having to run away from the police. So that's
Would you ever do, I mean, just out of interest, would you ever do like any of the graffiti wall art, or is that well behind you now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm lined up to do a little collaboration piece with someone really soon. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. No, I love to revisit it. I do really, I mean, I look back and I think I never used to wear a mask when I was doing it because you just don't think about them things as a kid. Now I'm like, right, we must get the PPE sorted. And
oh, mate, as a painter and decorator by trade, it horrifies me when I look back because, I mean, dustless sanding's only been a thing, even in my business, for maybe the last, if I were to say 10 years, that's probably too long. I've been in business 25. So for the first 10, 15 years, it was all hand sanding, and mate, I never wore a mask.
No.
Even the little disposables, and the particles in filler is proven to be carcinogenic.
Yeah.
So the amount of stuff I'll have inhaled when I was younger.
We used to go to the toilet, blow your nose, and you'd see it.
Oh
Like,
God, yeah. Whatever colour you were sanding, and
so what's going
yeah,
through that? Yeah.
lead-based paints
Yeah.
and all this
Like
stuff
creams.
that, yeah. But we're still here.
Yeah.
We're still here, mate. I think it's made us stronger, if anything. But yeah, it's definitely moved in the right direction with the health and safety and the masks and all that lot now. But it is frightening to look back at some of the stuff that we did.
Yeah. Some of the health and safety it's gone really, really far. I mean, we were doing a job in Heathrow Airport a little while ago, and it was like I just needed to get up and do this one little bit at the top, just mask this and just put a little touch up. And it was like, right, you have to get a podium, you have to get this, we have to clear the whole area. And I was like, really?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
But I get it, because they have to kind of blanket, have the same rule. So, and I think now after, like, you just realise after a while, no, this does make sense. I can remember being a lot younger and just saying like,
I was exactly the same, mate, when the first, I guess, the health and safety revolution sort of appeared. Because when I first started in the building trades, it was a Wild West. You were master your own destiny. It was you do whatever you have to do to get it done. I look back, mate, some of the things I did. We're talking like ladders off ladders on roofs and rope tying it to gutter. Horrendous, some of the stuff that I did. Climbing up gutters, like gullies in roofs and stuff like that to get to gable ends that you couldn't. And at the time, it felt like, I don't know, I guess some weird perverse kind of freedom. But looking back now as like an older, more mature person, I'm like, Jesus Christ, it's one little slip. One slip. And I used to know he was a client actually, but a chap who was a sign fitter. And he'd come off a ladder and broke his back. And that was it, lifetime in a wheelchair then. So it does have its purpose, as much as we pushed back when it first came about. And it does seem a bit strange at times. I mean, even semi-recently, I moved house a few years ago. And we had Sky installed, and they came to put the dish out. Like the guy looked like he was about to climb Everest.
Oh, really?
Hard hats, harnesses. And I reckon the dish he put up was maybe 7 foot high.
Yeah.
So nothing drastic, but he was having to drill into the house to put like the ties on the ladders, and then he had to move his ladder. He had to go to the van, get a bit of mortar, fill the hole that he'd made, re-drill to tie the ladder back in.
Sounds expensive.
Well, I mean, to him, I guess he's on a day rate, he's on his salary, so it doesn't matter. But then there's me looking, thinking, Christ, I'll just put a pair of steps up and moved it along a bit. So there's that side that's a bit disproportionate, but overall, mate, it's not bad. I mean, getting into the commercial world that you've worked in, like, what's the most high-profile job that you've done? Because I've seen you work all around London.
Most high profile. Well, I've got no favourites here, of course. I think we do the likes of like Hilton hotels, David Lloyd, like gyms. We do some really. I think some of the ones that, although like these are the larger ones that are kind of like high profile. Some of the ones, like, we've got some really lovely clients. Can't mention names, can we? Yeah,
you mention away, mate. Yeah, as long as they don't mind you mentioning it.
No,
you
we've got
mention
some
whatever you want.
little favourites there. Like we got this restaurant called Banconi, Italian restaurant. Came to us, I think it was about 2017, I want to say, and sat down with just that vision of having a restaurant. There was no restaurant that existed, but had this kind of vision of what they wanted in the future. And what I love about that is we were involved in that design process right from the beginning. And then now we're on like restaurant 4, and they're using us the whole way through.
Okay.
And we're keeping that flow through the whole thing. And to me, that's that's the ones I really love to get involved with. And I guess, they weren't high profile to begin with, but now they've become like quite a name. And I can see these guys becoming like a pretty big deal. I don't think they want sort of like nationwide, but, and it feels good to be part of their story, part of their journey. Trying to think of other brands that we work for. We work in like Selfridges, Harrods, work for a few like makeup brands. And it's nice. It's nice to have these against your name, and that, you've it's nice. Yeah, it's nice to have them against your name, because it's nice that they've trusted you. I guess it's a nice feeling to know you feel
Yeah,
trusted.
mate, I think it's only, I mean, in my opinion, that what you're doing with the surface design and the Venetian plastic is only growing as well. I
Mm.
think now people are getting, again, I guess you can maybe credit the rise of social media, that the fact that people, it's far more accessible to see what you can do.
Yeah,
And that knowledge is out there in terms of like finishes and some of the bespoke work. I think it's going to be a growing thing.
yeah. I think the social media is a great thing. I think with that, one of the things that I love is it's kind of almost formed this like brotherhood as well in the social media. Yeah, I say brotherhood, also sisterhood. It's not you can't,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah,
that
yeah.
term. It's like people are coming together, and there's that feeling of like abundance. It's not like,
Mm,
oh, this is my job, like keep it to myself. It's like there's just everyone sharing and kind of like helping each other out.
mm.
Little tips. People are like giving little tips away to each other, and I really, really love what's happened with that, and that's kind of really blown up with the social media. I've noticed in the painting and decorating field, there's a real nice feeling at the moment. Like
Yeah, it does seem to be particularly so, that it's. Well, I mean, one of the reasons I started the podcast is to address the mental health situation in construction, which is really bad. And two of the worst affected trades are painters and decorators and plasterers.
mm,
And my own deductions from that are because it's the finishing trades and it's the nature of the solitary nature of the work. The fact that decorators are probably a bit more likely, as are plasterers, to be on site on their own,
mm-hmm,
more likely to be in a occupied house on their own. I mean, my own business demographic myself is high end domestic. Very, very often, jobbing case at the moment. Clients away, so we've got the keys.
mm-hmm.
So I'm turning up in the morning and I don't see anybody all day. And
Yeah,
that's quite a regular thing. Or you'll see the customer in the morning, 8 o'clock, and then they're off to work. You're on your own all day. So having that social media, what feels like your support network, your family, work family. I think it really will make a difference and is making a difference to people that are struggling, because it can feel when I don't know, you might have something, a paint reaction going on a wall or a
mm,
ceiling, whatever,
mm.
and you can't really equate, why have I done something wrong here? When you know that you're on your own, and if you've got nobody to ask, nobody to turn to, it can feel really hopeless in those moments.
I guess if used in the right way, it can definitely help. The problems can feel shared, but only when it's used
Mm,
in the right way. I think on the adverse side of that, when it's used in a way of like comparison, for instance,
yeah.
then it can go the other way.
Mm,
Like, oh, you could be looking at, oh, why is that flying for them? And why is it not for me? Or what, why are they here? And
mm,
so it's got to be, because you've got to remember, like, you've got to keep checking in and saying, like, this isn't real. This is going
yeah.
to be the glossy side of
It's a
that.
highlight reel. Yeah, yeah.
But I think, I mean, like, tell me if you think I'm wrong with this, but well, social media has kind of gone through this little journey of its own as well. And there was a point where it was like all just like highlights and the best. And actually, a
Mm,
lot of people are becoming a bit more vulnerable. They're showing the authentic sides, the
mm,
bloopers, the outtakes. That's what I really, really love about now. And people are kind of they're showing that it's not all up here all the
mm,
time, and people are kind of sharing, like you say, about mental health. Like, and this is what I really, really love is like people are coming together and going,
mm.
"Oh, what? Oh, you're suffering with that? Oh, me too." Like,
Yeah,
oh, there used to be a point where I was like, "Well, look, keep that bit high,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
hidden, and then just show the good bits."
yeah.
And now it's just like, right, get it all out there, and some great people, especially when people have got a good platform
Mm,
and they're not afraid to say that, like, listen, I struggle with this sometimes. Then you got the kind of the people like the followers going, oh, okay, right, it's not just me, right?
mm. Really powerful, mate. And it is literally the summary of why I've started this. Um, for exactly that reason, when you've got people that have got the high profiles, and I can see it both ways, James, in fairness. I don't believe that everybody should have to go and share their lows and talk about their mental health on a business page. I don't think that you have to do that. There's no moral obligation. It's a personal choice. It's whatever's right for you. Some people are very private people. Some people are more open. And it's that thing that even if the people that are being open about their mental health or their business struggles will help those that are being private about their struggles just by resonation, by those people seeing it. Doesn't mean that everybody has to go out there and put out everything into the open and be vulnerable, because not everyone's ready for that. Not everybody's built that way, and that's fine. That's absolutely cool. So I think it's really important that there's that mix.
Yeah.
I can definitely see it from, I'm very open myself, as you know. But I can see it from the other side as well, where people are like, look, it's my business page, it's my portfolio. I don't want my clients seeing my personal life. Get that, 100% get that. But I do think it is really valuable to have those that are open to being open.
Yeah, I agree. And to be honest with you, in all the situations that I see, any of the guys who are being that little bit more open and just laying all the cards on the table, to me, they're a lot more relatable than the ones that are just completely glossy.
Yeah.
There are pages that are just stunning and all glossy, and like you say, you wouldn't know what's going on behind the scenes. But to me personally, when I see someone like a profile who shows all the goods and all the bads, to me, I think, oh, that's human. I can get behind that.
I'm 100% the same. I'm in the same camp as you, but I do see it from both sides of the coin. It's like the podcast I've had over the year. I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me and have said things along the lines of, Russ, love what you're doing. I've listened to these episodes, really great. I've got a story to tell myself. It's in line with some of the other stuff that you've talked about. I just don't feel like I can get on camera and put that out there because I'm worried it'll affect my family or it'll affect this, that, and the other. Mate, absolutely fine. I do not expect anybody to do this. I've got such respect for those that do.
Yeah.
All of the previous guests, yourself included, that have come in are being prepared to talk and being open. Massive respect for that.
Yeah.
But it's not for everyone, and that is fine. That is fine. You can be a part of raising mental health awareness. You don't have to put your own story out there if you don't want to. You can just share somebody else's. Talk about somebody else's. It's just that thing about getting everybody talking, and educating yourself on how best to use social media, identifying what you've just said, identifying those real and raw accounts, and then identifying the glossy ones. Nothing wrong with the glossy ones, but just know that that is the shop front. That's the highlight reel.
Yeah.
There is more behind it. It's not that they're out there making 100%, everything's 100% right 100% of the time, because that's not life.
No.
Everybody, the very best companies out there will make fuck-ups, without doubt. And if they choose to publicise them or not, that's entirely up to them.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said before, it's about what you're ready for, and on your part of your journey, and also what you're ready for, even on a day-to-day basis. Some days you might want to hear that story. It might feel quite comforting to hear that someone's going through something that you've gone through, or something like
definitely.
that. And then some days you might be like, I don't need this today. It's just about what you're ready for, isn't it? But no, this is one of the things that I really do like about social media, with the direction that it's gone recently. It's a lot more real. You do see a lot of I found that, especially like Instagram, I found recently, even sometimes like something good and quite positive. If you want to label things, sometimes there are people who just want to put a bad spin on it. The
Always.
comments can be like quite harsh, and but then you do see these little glimmers of like good humans as well, and that can also feel quite nice. People bigging each other up. I can't remember which page it was, but there was this page where people used to post their work, and I think this might have been on Facebook. It was quite a while ago, and oh my god, the comments! I mean,
some of those Facebook like groups are just brutal.
It was.
It's a Shark Tank.
Yeah.
It's just they smell a little bit of blood in the water, and they all pounce.
And I just thought, where's the humanity? Or was surely we're not going this direction now. And this poor guy probably put up his work, really, really chuffed with it. And he could be having a bad day, and all of a sudden someone's jumped on, and it's like, oh
Spirals.
my god, yeah.
It's a weird one. I don't understand the mentality myself, but it's my own personal development led me into studying psychology. Since I've done that, I find it really difficult to get angry with people because even those like the negative comments, those people, I'll look at that comment now and I'll go, I wonder what's happened in his day to make him write that. You
A
know,
lot of
rather than,
projection.
yeah, the
Yeah,
comment is irrelevant
yeah,
because it's one of those, mate, isn't it? Like, if you use your common sense, if you've posted good work and somebody has picked the smallest little imperfection or try, you shouldn't have done that, you should have done this, and you know it's wrong, technically that comment shouldn't bother you. But as humans, we tend to focus on those negatives and let it bother us.
hmm
Um, I've worked on myself a lot to put that to bed, and that's what I see now. I kind of don't see the comment. I look at
yeah,
the cause, and it's
yeah,
like, I wonder what's caused that. I wonder why they're doing that. And I
yeah,
see that on social media, and this sounds really bad, but there's almost a pity. I look and I think, you've got to be in a bad place to write that.
yeah. I feel you with that. I think it's about in yourself. It's about having that almost. Is it stoicism
Yeah,
where you like
I've studied the Stoics.
so you
Yeah,
acknowledge it, you let it kind of like you acknowledge it, you don't dwell on it, and you let it
mm,
go away.
yeah,
Um, but then it's also that if you want to go that step deeper, it's about what happened to you in order to, and normally it is like a projection of somewhere where they're lacking
yeah,
in
always.
themselves.
Yeah,
Everyone's got a different way of doing a job, but
yeah.
to be fair, there's no right or wrong way of, many tasks that we do. Someone's always got a better way, but it's,
Look, generally in life, you can pretty much live by the rule, or with social media, that it's not a hyper successful, happy person writing those comments. It's not.
no, no, that's right.
You know, somebody that's doing very well for themselves and is in a good place in life won't sit there and troll people
No, no,
because they're
absolutely.
just not interested.
No,
You
no,
know,
that's right.
it's once you learn that there's more to life in picking people up than putting them down,
hmm
it's just a much happier, better way
Yeah,
to live.
yeah, yeah. No, I love to, I love to see people bigging each other up in the industry.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I'll be honest, it's one of the things I like to do myself. If I'm honest, if I've got the time, I'd always give even if I could see where there would be an improvement. Like I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I would just say like that's incredible. Like good work there.
How is
You know.
the sort of competitive nature of your industry? Because it's a lot more niche than mine.
Yeah, yeah. I find that there's plenty to go around, and I find that a lot of people in the industry, and some of the good names out there, we find that we kind of give each other more work than we would kind of we're giving each other work. I mean, literally last night there was a job that came to me where I thought, well, that's not really my field. But, I mean, it fell under Venetian plastering, but it
Mm,
was doing some furniture basically. It was to
okay.
do this it was to do this micro cement table.
Right.
Now, I'm capable of doing that. Got the workshop. We could do it, but it's not really stuff that I like. But I do know someone in the industry who's doing quite a bit of that. I thought that could be great, so I've passed that on. Um, and then just recently, a job came to me. In fact, I would say on a regular basis, maybe a couple of months come in from other Venetian plasterers as well. So it's quite nice in that
That's
way.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. People pass each other work. It could be down to region. It could be someone from up Manchester
Yeah, yeah.
who's got something down in South and doesn't particularly want to or can't travel, and
Mm,
they'd rather give it to someone who's not going to let them down, someone they willing to recommend, to do the job down our way, and vice versa. And you find, don't you, with
mm.
that like that abundance mentality,
Yep,
it normally returns, doesn't it?
definitely.
You know.
Yeah, we do the same, mate. And again, another great thing about social media, like I'm in a couple of Instagram groups with other decorators. And the same thing if I get inquiry, and that's the other strange thing about social media is now I'll get inquiries in London, Manchester, and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And they don't really know where you're based, and they ask if you'll travel. I'm always happy to recommend. I know people in most areas now, most regions, that I'd be
yeah.
happy to put forward, and you get the work passed around a bit, which is nice.
It's a really, really difficult thing to recommend anyway, isn't it? It's a difficult thing
Yeah.
because it's down to more than just it's more than the standard of the work that person does.
Mm,
You could probably know that this person would do a great job, but you don't know what the work ethic's like. You don't know whether that person is going to
mm.
not turn up, and,
Yeah.
and that could look bad on you for
It is a
recommending.
reflection on you. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think you have to be kind of 100% about these things before you do that anyway,
Mm,
or at least give a disclaimer to say, listen, I've got this guy, this girl will do a great job for you. However, I've got
Yeah,
to.
exactly.
I'm
Yeah,
giving you the
I've seen
number,
the
and that's
works
it.
great. That's
Yeah,
all it
yeah.
is to do with me.
But I think there's this that for me personally, it's quite difficult to give a recommendation. But
Mm,
fortunately, I do have a good amount of people who are like, look no further than this person here. Yeah, and I really love seeing that in
mm,
the industry. That's part of this whole thing that I'm talking about, where people
yeah,
are kind of looking out for each other, and it's not so much like I remember a point where it was like everyone just kept their cards close to their chest. They were like,
yeah, yeah.
I
It's,
just
it
don't
is.
see the
It fortunately it is changing, or I believe it is. I mean, I remember again when I first started in business. Even just you can see there's a difference, not just social media, but in trade centres. It used to be, or for me in my area, that you'd go in and you might know all the decorators, but it was always very cagey.
yeah,
It was like all right,
that's
that's
it.
all you'd get
Yeah,
because that was your competition.
yeah,
But I think that the thing that social media has done is lifted that lid where you can talk to people in your trade that are definitely not your competition.
yeah.
Because, I can share tips with somebody that's based in London. They're not competing for the same Mrs. Smith job that I've gone to quote
That's
this
so true.
afternoon.
That's so true.
And I think it's just lifted that. There's a bit breath of fresh air where you
Yeah,
can go, okay, I can talk about this now,
yeah,
and I can learn. Honestly, mate, I have learned so much of social media
yeah,
myself. I've made so many improvements in my business. I've raised my levels without doubt. Sounds a bit arrogant, this, but I think within my industry, because I'd been doing it so long and I'm third generation and I was well known in my area, I was comparing myself to all the people in my area
yeah,
and I would have ranked myself at the top
yeah.
or very close to the top. Like I'm one of the better ones. Then I got on social media. Then I started looking on Instagram and I'm like, ooh, there's some new
I love
levels to
this.
hit here
Yeah,
because
I
this
love
guy
this.
is really killing it. And
Yeah.
look at how sharp he's. Look at that application method. Look at even
See the
down to
comparison coming in again,
floor
right?
protection, all this kind of stuff, and thinking, hold on a minute. Actually, I've still got a lot to learn. I can
Yeah,
improve on all these areas and make all these investments. So it's been a really positive impact on my business.
yeah, yeah.
Really has. So yeah, it's nice to talk about it in this frame of mind, actually,
I
James,
agree.
because often social media just gets absolutely destroyed on the negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's what you choose to do with that knowledge. So, for instance, I mean, this has just put it on a worldwide platform. So, I'm guessing that what you're saying is at one
Mm,
point you're this big fish in a little pond, right? And you're
hmm.
kind of like, I class myself as here, and and like you say, all of a sudden this veil pulls down, and you start to see that you're this little fish in this big pond, and it's like, oh, okay, and you're looking worldwide now, and all
Mm,
of a sudden you're thinking you're here, and you're seeing this guy who's out in the States doing this, and then this guy who's out in out in the Middle East doing this, and you're like, oh wow, I got a lot to learn.
yeah.
But you know what? That info could either destroy you or drive you. And I'm a
Mm,
massive believer in this. And I think that, going back to the whole, like when you say about, in this trade, working on your own a lot. And, I
mm,
do a lot of kind of like inner work. I love to work on myself. Um, I think sometimes it's about knowing what you want to do with that stress, what you want to do with that pressure that's upon you, in the finishing trade, in everything. You can either use that stress to scare the hell out of you and go like, oh, I don't want this. This is too much.
mm.
Can make you feel super anxious, or you can use that stress as your driver. And I think some of the times when I should be the most stressed, or definitely am the most stressed, that's when I'm working so hard. It's actually
Mm.
when that stress diminishes, all of a sudden I'm like, I'll just take a day off, and you know,
I do, mate. 100%.
it's about what you do with that stress, isn't it?
You hit the nail on the head, man. You can either take that knowledge, the big fish that the pond just got a lot bigger, and you can shrink away from it, and
Yeah,
you can feel intimidated.
yeah,
When the when the curtain was pulled back for me through social media, and I started seeing all these new application methods and levels of finishing. I mean, what the biggest key one, if you're a decorator, you'll know this: dustless sanding. It was this huge revelation because all of a sudden your preparation game was just so much. You can't argue. You cannot prepare by hand the way that you can by machine
yeah,
and deliver the same surface finish.
yeah.
I think it was probably the plasterer's biggest dream when dustless sanding came along, because all of a sudden now it's like, decorator can sort that now. We won't get into that conversation, James. But it, that was a game changer in the industry, and it was through social media that I was seeing it and thinking, Jesus Christ. It was like a light bulb moment for me in my business, and it actually reinvigorated me, because if I'm being completely honest, I was probably a bit bored, maybe a bit arrogant, set in my ways, a little bit like, well, okay, this is it.
Complacency.
What else can I do? What else can I learn? What else can I grow into?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, it opened up this big area of growth for me, and I found the passion for the trade again.
Yeah.
I was like, brilliant. Right, okay, I've got more stuff to learn, more stuff I can improve on, targets to make, goals to set. And it was a real positive for me. And it sort of brought back my love for the trade.
Yeah.
And now that's how I look at it. I see all these new things coming in, like the spray technologies and all the upgrades in equipment and machinery. And it excites me now, because I think, wicked, what will that do? What can that do? What can we improve on here? So I'm really excited to see the future of my industry moving forwards. But you have to accept it like that.
Yeah, I agree. And it's about how you accept it and about how you use that to whether you want to let it drive you or whether you, like you said, you want to make it shrink you. I mean, some days you could see some of this stuff in the wrong frame of mind, and then you could just want to give up. You can want to go,
Yeah.
oh my God,
Yeah.
there's just it's overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes I have to sit there and go, yeah, we could do that. We could add that to our bow. We could go down that road, but actually that's not for me. Like, I love what these guys are doing. I love what they're doing, but this is what I love doing. I'm gonna stick to
100%,
my
mate. You don't have to do
that.
everything.
No.
Yeah.
And like you said, all these like sprayers are coming out and stuff, and this must excite you. That excites me, and it's not even my industry.
Yeah. I mean, spraying within the decorating industry is a bit of a strange one. You've hit the nail on the head. It's an industry. It's almost a trade of its own.
Yeah.
Yes, it links. Yes, you're both dealing with paint, but being a sprayer and being a decorator, two different trades to me. And then you've got decorators that spray. Then you've got sprayers that don't decorate. And there's levels.
Yeah.
And you're going to price yourself accordingly. Your finish is going to be appropriate to where you're at. I mean, like me, for example, I've resprayed several kitchens to a fantastic standard, customers over the moon. Probably, and I've supplied that service, no doubt, cheaper than somebody that has got a full unit set up, the sterile environment, better spray equipment than me. And no doubt their finish would be better than mine.
Yeah.
Whether the customer would notice it, I don't know. But the finish would be better. But this is where you set your levels and have to know what you're marketing and what you're doing. There are, as you say, there's quite a few decorators, I believe, that have moved over into just spraying. That's all they do now. So I know a few lads that have gone into, they just do kitchens. Wouldn't be for me personally. I think I'd get a bit bored of it. But there are these niches within the trade now. So spray finishing. I've even considered before just going into wallpaper hanging, because I enjoy papering.
Yeah.
And just doing that, specialist wallpaper installation. And then I thought, but would I enjoy it if I did it every day?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
This is it.
So there's growing niches within the trade. I mean, with some of the surface finishing that you do, I know there's some like spray training academies that are offering these kind of courses as well. So it's like, well, is that going to start crossing over where you've got spray? I've seen like the spray granite that some people are doing on kitchen worktops. Do you do that?
Yeah, no, we there's a lot of finishes we have now that has like aggregates in it and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, I mean, again, I like to play with it. I like to see what's out there. I run an academy myself as well. Right. So I have to be able to teach a broad range of finishes.
It's incredible, mate. Some of the stuff I've seen the spray metals.
And we do liquid metals, and we spray some, we hand apply some. Yeah, but these with the spray ones have to be done in a workshop. Where do you draw the line on what you do? Like you said with the cabinets, did you take them off and take them to a?
Yeah, so with the kitchens, we take all the drawers and door fronts away, do them off site, bring them back wrapped and sealed and reinstall. But obviously, we do all the casements and things that won't come off easily. I'm not going to strip a kitchen apart, but we'll do all the casements on site then. But it's a service in proportion with what it is, because then I've also had customers that have requested hand painted kitchens,
Yeah.
and we'll do all that, and we'll do it all correctly and sand it all back properly, strip it back, and then deliver a hand painted finish
Yeah.
because that's what they want. It's appropriate to the property.
There's a certain charm to that, isn't there? And
Yeah,
that's what it is. It's fitting to that job. And I think that there's been opportunities where jobs have come to me and I've thought, that'd be a tremendous earner, but it will be, 30 apartments in
yeah,
this certain finish, one finish. And I think to myself, wow, that's big numbers. But you know what? I think by apartment number 2,
you'd be sick
my
of it.
soul would start sort of, I can't
I
handle
love the
this.
fact that you're that way inclined. I mean, that obviously started when you were quite young. How was it for you, I guess, pushing back against your family expectations?
Mm. Well, I guess in a way I followed my family expectations, but then ended up realizing that, I wish I'd have done this a little bit sooner. I wouldn't say I've
Mm,
always followed my heart. I would say that I did actually kind of follow the guidance and do those things. When I was told that, there's not so much money in art, there's not so much money in like the creativity. Okay, all right. I didn't push back on that too much. I kind of did end up knuckling down from time
mm.
to time. But I do think to myself, I'd have loved to go into an art college. I'd have loved to have done this, and then God knows what would have happened. But I'm definitely making up for that now.
Mm.
I think what happens is I have these moments where I have to just calm that voice down in the head, and then just go like, right, okay, what feels right, really? Like, what do I really want to follow? Because at the end of the day, if you follow this, if you follow the heart, you're always going to be happy. And yeah, sometimes these opportunities come up with, like I said, big numbers on projects, and you think to yourself, God, this could absolutely make me. But is it going to really fulfill you? Are you going to really be happy? Are you going to really, look at that job and go, yeah, that's
Mm.
incredible. That's what I want. That's what fuels me. So I think there came a point where I'd follow my head, then I'd follow my heart, and then I'd go, right, okay, it was always the heart. Always should have gone with that. And then now it's all the time. But
Always the heart.
but yeah, but that's been my own learning curve.
Mm.
You've got to just take these little moments of quiet, just to sit with it, and then once that voice calms down, then you can start to hear that little whisper, and you think, oh yeah, we'll go with that, and that's always the one.
That's really sterling advice, mate.
Mm,
To be honest, um, is it's a difficult one, because the society we live in, the rat race that we're caught up in, just seems to be getting people are working longer, they're working harder. The focus is on finance; it's not on happiness.
yeah,
And it's becoming more and more. I see it's becoming more and more difficult to live at a level that we could previously live at with a lot more free time. Does that make
yeah,
sense?
yeah, absolutely.
I guess I feel that me personally, in order to finance my lifestyle, I'm having to work more, which leaves more. You're more inclined to lean into that. What you just said, if you see, I'm not going to enjoy that, but there's good money in it, you're
Yeah,
more inclined to take that
yeah,
because of the pressures of life.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I wish I knew the answer, mate. I had this conversation yesterday with some people, and I was like, I just feel that, generally, as a sweeping statement, but I feel that Western society at the minute is really heading in the wrong direction in terms of our values.
Yeah,
I don't know how to arrest that. It's like it's stumbling, it's rolling.
yeah,
How do you stop that
yeah.
and pull it back?
It almost becomes it's a privilege to be able to choose work, because and that
Definitely,
should
yeah,
be a granted, but it's actually a privilege if you're in that position. You're right,
yeah.
you do just have to take it. But I mean, there's always that risk of ending up falling into that kind of being a busy fool, isn't there? Where you
Oh,
just take
definitely,
everything on,
yeah,
quoting it like far too keenly, just because you
yep,
don't want to lose it, don't want to lose it. And actually, I think when you get into this mindset of like, no, do you know what? I know my worth. I know what I want to do, and it's just working that little bit more wisely. Yeah, I've fallen into it myself sometimes, where you think, no, I've just got to take this on because I want to know that I'm working for the next couple of weeks. That definitely
mm,
have come across times like that. I remember there being a time when this was just like when you looked at like the worldwide scale, people were saying, "Oh, I'm going to immigrate here because actually they live for the outdoors a lot more and they have a lot more family time." There used to be a time when you'd hear these stories, and I think, but even like worldwide, it's become like that now. Like you say, it's in the West.
Western society, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's become a bit more like that worldwide, and I just hope it's more of a phase rather than a sign of things to come.
I think it might be a phase, but I think we're just at the beginning of it.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah,
I think it's going to get a lot worse.
yeah,
That's my own speculation. I don't mean to be pessimistic, but
yeah.
just like the short term observations that I'm making. And I've repeated this in the past, but I've noticed, like, say, with my customer base, when I started in business, which was like 24, 25 years ago, I guess the normal demographic would probably be, and this isn't being sexist, it's just how it was. Generally, I'd go to a house, there'd be the wife at home as a housewife and the husband would
Mm,
be at work.
mm,
And that was quite normal. I would say my normal customer demographic now is that both people are at work,
yeah.
and they normally work quite long hours because they're in a position where they can employ me as a painter and decorator. They're normally relatively well paid positions,
Hmm.
so they tend to work quite long hours. And it's so common now where I'll go to a house, meet the customer at 7:30, 8. They'll be at work till 6, 7.
Yeah,
I'll be gone by the time they get back.
yeah,
And that's, husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend or, cohabiting partners, whatever it might be. But everyone's working is what I'm trying to get at. Is
yeah,
there's quite rare for me to come across clients that are at home.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
Whereas 20 years ago, I feel that was quite different.
I think the thing is, and the thing that I always stick to, and I hope I'm right on it. By the way, I haven't got proof yet, but I've got this belief that if you just believe in if you do follow that heart and you just keep believing in like I don't want to throw this word around too loosely, but your passion, what you really want to do. Yes, this will come at a financial loss to begin with. It will, for sure. I can tell you that's the truth. That's happened.
I'm feeling that right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what? I absolutely guarantee that when you follow that passion and believe in it, that it takes a long time, but it does pay off in the end.
Mm.
It I mean, I could have stuck to the plastering forever, and plastering it's an okay paying job. It's a
Yeah.
good paying job, really. If you look at it across the board, I've been a single parent for a lot of my life, so
I mean,
it's
that,
been
that
tough.
carries a pressure,
Yeah,
mate.
it's been tough anyway. And by the way, when I say a single parent, I don't mean like I've been seeing my kids like 50-50. So
Mm.
it's it's tough
Yeah.
to make that work. I guess I would say that in order to do the school runs and stuff and still run my
Yeah.
business, I mean, I'd never be able to work for a company because I'd be
Yeah.
unemployable on the hours I could do, you know. But I believed in what I wanted to do. I believed in following my heart, my passion, and absolutely, this does pay off in the long run. I mean, I heard of a few. It's like little cliche terms. Oh, follow the passion, and the money will follow in the end. Um, I hope that's right
Yeah.
because that's what I've always done. No, I have started to see rewards at times. I guess with me, I would say the only thing I've personally done is like when the reward has come, I've ended up pulling that into something new,
Yeah.
wanting to take that a little bit further. I think I'm probably at a point now where I'm done with like ventures of where I want to go.
Mm.
Now I need to just kind of work on the things I've got going
Yeah.
and that's it. But no, always follow that passion. It's really, really difficult because, there's been times where I've been absolutely on my arse from doing that.
Yeah.
And then times of doubt when you're going, was that really the right thing to do? I could have just carried on doing that career and
Mm.
would have been fine. I mean, I've gone without so much in order to follow that passion, without the holidays, without,
Mm.
the going out. I've literally just stuck to my belief and my goals. But yeah, I honestly believe it does come in the end.
That path of growth, mate, is rarely smooth.
Absolutely, it's literally all over, isn't it?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's rarely pleasant to walk either.
yeah,
That's the thing.
yeah.
Um, it's one of the key Stoic philosophies, funnily enough, that I grasped onto, and legitimately, it's been a game changer for mindset for me, which is the whole principle of. There's a book actually written by Ryan Holiday called "The Obstacle is the Way," and that sums it up perfectly. The obstacle is the way. So it's the old cliche: "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." But it is, if you can start finding the lessons in life or the value in the failures, the value in the adversities, it just changes your whole mindset on
Yeah.
everything. You
Yeah.
know, like, okay, that's shit, that's happened, but what have I learned from that?
Yeah.
And even if that's, don't walk on broken glass with no shoes on, you cut your feet, but you learned from it.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
problem is you keep doing it. But whatever happens to you in life, if you can take a lesson, as obvious as it might sound, don't walk out into a road full of traffic,
Mm.
but as long as you're learning a lesson, and in business, that's so important because you're going to fail. Things are going to go wrong. Jobs are going to go wrong. Customers are going to go wrong. Money's going to go wrong. You know, equipment will go wrong. Just learn from it. It's always
Absolutely.
shit at the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, I can say that I see students coming through the academy, and they get really, really disheartened when they see this like sample board.
Mm,
Um, it's going so well. It's going so well, and they start trialing it up, and all of a sudden, it just goes horribly wrong.
mm,
I see students sitting there really beating themselves up. Going like, oh, where? Oh, really, really disheartened. We're talking about a sample board here.
yeah.
But I feel it. I get it because they're really proud of how it was coming on, and they've just rushed something, or the
Mm,
timing was wrong. I have to have a little moment to say, like, look, just be grateful that you just done it on there. I mean, this could have been
mm,
a customer's wall, or
yeah.
so make all your mistakes there. And listen, I'm going to tell you now, if you think that's the only mistake that you're going to make, or you're going to make a hell of a lot of mistakes before you get to a point where you're not making mistakes. I mean,
Mm.
always making mistakes, right? And
Oh, God,
that's
yeah.
it. Fail more is
That's
the
the
term, isn't it?
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I listened to Stephen Bartlett actually the other day, and he was talking about his business growth and that his major investment in business is to invest in experimentation, and that he banks on 90% of his experiments. And he was talking about his podcast actually, that they experiment all the time within his podcast. That you'd never know. It might be a subtle change in the lighting or a subtle change in an object on the deck, whatever it might be. With him, everything is thought out. But he was saying he does all these experiments and he employs people to do them, knowing that 90% are going to fail,
Yeah.
because then the 10% you lean into.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's not being afraid to fail, um, and being appreciative to fail. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
be thankful for the failures, because within that failure is a lesson.
Absolutely. I think actually sometimes the failures can be quite beautiful. We've done some pieces of work where something's gone completely wrong, and I've thought, wow, that looks quite nice. I
Yeah.
quite like that. I mean, did you ever see Bob Ross, the artist, Bob Ross?
No, no, no,
There's
no.
a TV program, Bob Ross, The Joy of Painting. And he would say, like, he'd call it a happy little accident. No such thing as a mistake. It's a happy little accident.
Yeah.
And it's so true. I mean, sometimes I'll do this finish and something will go wrong. Take this, for example. We're on a site once and we're doing this rust finish. So we're trying to make, it was just like an MDF wall,
Mm,
and we were making it look like an old rusty tank. So we work with like a paint that has like iron filings in it, and then it's oxidized. And we're working with this, and then there was this chippy nearby, and he's not thought about what I'm doing. He's just
mm.
chop saw. All of a sudden, it's stuck to my wall in this corner, and he's come up and he's apologized to me. And my initial was like, like, what have you done?
Yeah.
And then it was like, took a moment. I thought, do you know what? Like, we could work with that as a bit of texture. We could
Mm,
like just add to that, add some more iron fines. We could make this like really kind of built up rust there. And it looked incredible. People were
yeah.
like, oh, my favorite bit is there. And I was like, oh my God, if only you knew. But you know what? Now, when we're teaching that finish, I will actually get some sawdust, and I'll show the students what it's like to mix up some sawdust in the material,
Mm,
just to build up that corner. And we've used it
yeah.
in our restaurants now. We've just recently on Banconi number 3, we've used this. I'm going to give away all the secrets now, but like this sawdust
Mm,
thrown in this Nova Color oxidation, and we've built up these textures,
To
and it
make
looks
it look well.
incredible.
Rust does do that, doesn't it? It
Yeah,
does
yeah,
create
it
those
goes
raised.
gnarly. Like
Yeah,
you look
yeah,
at, like, you know, it looks like you dragged up the Titanic. It
yeah.
looks incredible. Yeah. So
Exactly, mate.
again,
Yeah,
a
leaning
mistake,
into it, man.
a failure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
that makes it
there's a
incredible.
big, nice lesson in it for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Fair play. One of the other things I want to talk to you about, James, is you mentioned that you are a teacher of meditation
Oh,
and
yeah.
yoga. How did all that come about?
I think I've always been interested in having my own little meditation practice, having a yoga practice.
When did you start meditating?
Yeah, so meditation came to me through, I went to a yoga class, and it was because yoga can be very, very different styles. You can go to one that's very physical, they call it the asana, and then you can go to a class that's very meditative, very slow, and you go inwards. And everyone, like we were saying about, it's what you're ready for. Everyone will go to a different class, and I don't think you can label a good class or a bad class. It's about how it resonates with you at the time. So that class, you might come out of it and go, oh my God, that was the best class I've ever had. And someone could be going, I don't ever want to go there again. And meditation came to me through one of those classes. It was a lot slower, and I was having a bit of a bad time with it, if I'm honest. I was struggling in there. I was fidgety. I was thinking, it was just an uncomfortable place to be. I couldn't wait to leave. But then, and I should really say that while I was doing yoga at the time, I was doing yoga to improve my flexibility. I wasn't interested in any of the woo woo. You know, I wasn't interested in that side of it. I was like, look, I just want to get more flexible. I just want to be more supple, and get a little bit of fitness on the side. So all of that stuff didn't interest me at all. And then after a while, I just started to realize that from not just that one class, but after going to another class that was like quite meditative, I started to think something shifted in me. Something has really, like, not like changed, but like something's different. I'm reacting to things differently. You know, could spill that water on me, and at one point my reaction might have been like, "Oh God," you know. After a while, it's like, whatever, you know. And I started to think, what's changed? I guess you could say, like, as you age, maybe this happens. I guess some people probably get worse, probably get more stressed out. But with me, I definitely noticed that something was like chilling out within myself. And I could only put it down to the yoga and the meditation. And I started to think there could be something in this. So I started to dive into this a little bit deeper and deeper. You end up going down a rabbit hole. And I started to realize that, no, this is really, really good for me. And from noticing how good it was for me, I think what happened was when we went through COVID, what was that, like 2020?
2020, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
2020. I started to realize that my meditation practice and my yoga was what I needed more than anything. It pulled me through that to the degree that I decided I wanted to teach it. I wanted to teach it to others, you know, as a tool that they could use. Now, as you can imagine, being on a building site and going through your yoga teacher training and like into meditation, it's like there's that kind of stigma to begin with. And there was a bit like, oh, okay, you know, we'd be doing these like handstands and crow poses on site, and it'd be like weirdos. But after a while, like people are quite intrigued, you know, and
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
on the quiet, they'd be like, oh, you know, like, could you tell me a little bit more about that? You know, and actually I realized that, and especially amongst like the guys, there was this stigma of like, oh, you know, guys can't do it and stuff. And I was like, no, if anything, like you guys probably need it a little bit more, you know. So the yoga, the meditation, is about becoming like more flexible on a physical level, but it's also about becoming like more flexible and supple on a mental level. I mean, what affects you on the physical is actually what's going on the inside too, you know. Um, yeah, I teach yoga, meditation. I did my 200-hour training during COVID. You know, we were meant to be going away for it, meant to be going to like Bali for 3 weeks, and with the lockdowns,
Yeah,
it
it
didn't
didn't happen.
happen. No, so we did it online, and oh my God, it's really transformed the way that I deal with anything.
Brilliant.
down to even, I would even say that it comes into how you talk to a client, how you even like pricing a job.
Mm,
Um, I guess it just generally like really calms you down, but then also it just gives you time. Like during meditation, you have that space, and like when
mm,
you declutter all of the noise that's going on. I mean, if I said like now, if you were to just like close your eyes, just try and be quiet for let's say 10 minutes, so many thoughts going on. But once
yeah.
after a while, you sort of you exercise that muscle that kind of just zoom.
So I've always been interested in meditation. I've never done it. I've never allocated the time to do it. I used to find certain things meditative in terms of, so my meditation used to be going to the gym, like weight training. I used to find that it used to be quite a meditative practice for me because like lifting heavy weights would focus me on the moment. And that, I think with meditation, that's kind of what it is, isn't it? It's being present in the moment and not having those external thoughts. And I know people talk about things like boxing and being in the flow state, similar sort of thing, because you're so focused on that there and then.
Mm-hmm.
It almost has meditative qualities to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always been fascinated with it. It's something that's on my list of things to explore. I went through a stage a few years ago of studying like Buddhism. And again, there's a lot of meditation involved in Buddhism. And again, it talks about mindfulness and being present and the positive mental benefits of learning those
Mm-hmm.
practices.
Yeah, I would say that there's something. I mean, I would say also that I feel there's a meditative feel during like weights, maybe boxing, that flow state.
Mm,
The big difference in doing something like a task and kind of you can go into that almost like autopilot mode,
yeah.
and that's where like your kind of pro boxers and stuff will kind of just flurry of combinations and not even thinking about it. They can just like it's
Mm,
almost like being in the Matrix. I think the difference in meditation, just sitting and sitting in stillness, nothing, is about that. You are super aware, like your awareness, and you are so in the present. So even like when those little feelings might come up and you just address it, you just acknowledge it and then you let it go. Just
mm,
like a cloud passing, you acknowledge it and let it go. That's probably the difference in like meditation or something that can feel meditative,
mm,
like with yourself with the gym. You've gone to the gym so many times and it's like, right, we're doing chest today. Right, we do that. You're not even thinking about it. You can probably chat to
mm,
a training buddy and you could probably go, I don't even know what I've done, but you've just done chest.
yeah.
The difference is that like being super present when you're meditating,
Mm.
and it's about calming that chaos. That chaos is all going around you, and it's about finding that calm in that chaos.
Do you meditate daily?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, daily, every morning without fail, most nights. And sometimes I'll even try and find it a little time on the tube. Just sit there. You don't have to sit there like
Mm.
this. It's not like that. You can just close down the noise. Just close your eyes
Mm.
and just that's it. Just melt into that. Just go inwards.
How long do you meditate for? Like, what's the time frame?
I can meditate from anything from 10 minutes, which is, I think, by the way, on a beginning level, if you're going to try meditation, then 10 minutes is really difficult.
Mm.
I love to meditate for an hour. Don't always have that privilege. It's
Mm.
difficult to come by a spare hour. But if I know that I've got a night of my own, that's how I rock and roll.
Yeah.
I'm going to just dive in for an hour and I'll have a little egg timer. It's an hour long egg timer. And so you've got nothing like warning you. But I've gone on like I went on like a Vipassana meditation. That's a 10-day solid meditation.
Wow.
Just 10 days, no phone, like no technology whatsoever, no reading, no
Mm.
writing, no talking, no eye contact. And you're just on this like very basic diet of just some oats in the morning, just like enough to live on,
Mm.
meditation for 17 hours a day. You'll be surprised what comes up in that time. A hell of a lot comes up.
I would imagine
Yeah,
so.
and that's
Yeah.
really, really deep. And you're
Yeah.
just on your own.
I know I've read a few articles about like breathing techniques, and that a lot of it can become like even with just breathing techniques, you can get like psychedelic experiences and things like that. So, breathwork's a big thing, isn't it?
Breathwork's huge. It's a big buzzword at the moment. So there's the DMT breathwork where you
Mm,
can, you're right, go into a state of, you can get a DMT release.
mm,
But you know, breathwork's a big umbrella. Breathwork can literally be um, just taking a little bit of time, you know, in something sort of when there's a little stimulus, something that's like triggering you. If you can learn to just inhale through the nostrils, just exhale, ideally through the nostrils if it's available to you. Just inhale, exhale, just through the nostrils. What that does is it starts to massage the vagus nerve.
mm,
And this is that little fight or flight kind of thing going on that it's like trigger, okay, how am I going to react? If you could just create that little space, just like when there's that stimulus, create that little space, little pause with the breath. Inhale through the nostrils, exhale. There's so much power in that, in how you react to that situation. It's that space. If you can start to create that little space between the stimulus and your reaction, you'll be winning at anything in life. You know, a little tricky
mm.
client, this happens, something doesn't go as it's meant to, delivery doesn't come on time, all these sorts of things. If you can, because when we do things in a reactionary, like from a habit, how many times you look back and you go, oh, I wish I'd have dealt with that differently,
Mm.
you know? And I think that there's so much to be said for doing that.
It's one of the key things, mate. I mean, what you're talking about is building up your like mental coping mechanisms, and working on yourself, your mentality, your mindset, your mental health. And it's one of the big problems I think in our industry is that we just don't give it the credit or time and reflection it deserves, because it can make such a huge difference to your life and business when you improve upon those things. Like you said, your trigger points and your reactions. And it's kind of ironic that we don't give it that focus. I mean, I would imagine from somebody, give me a microphone around, from somebody that's never done a yoga class, I've never learnt meditation, but I can already imagine the vast benefits it would have as a tradesperson, even just in terms of flexibility.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been times where I've had to sort of straddle my leg across the room to try and trowel that last bit on a micro cement floor, you know. So yeah, on a physical level,
Mm,
it's been incredible. But I would say that dealing with particular clients has always it's been a huge help.
mm,
Just in being able to deal with things a lot more calmly. I think when you deal with it's about having like more kindness and just approaching anything with kindness. There's a little saying. It was like kindness is the language that even the blind can see and the deaf can hear. And it's so true because kindness is so much more than it's words, or it's about a feeling, isn't it? And you know, I get that feeling when I meet you. I think it's my person. I can, you know, you
mm.
just feel at home, you know. And I think that it can help to be a lot more approachable. Um, it comes through, doesn't it? That feeling, you know, when you're around someone who's a bit kinder, and that comes
Yeah.
through a yoga practice. And again, it's about, no one wants to be around someone who's hot headed and
Mm,
just like flying off the handle. If there's that calmness, kindness, it's just how we should approach everything, right? It's a lot
definitely.
softer. And actually, what
Yeah.
you realize is that when you do approach things with kindness, when you approach a yoga pose with kindness, you start to realize that your body will actually just release into it a lot easier. It's a lot
Mm,
softer. The body starts to trust, especially when you hold a pose for like 5 minutes. You might start upright, and then after a while, gravity just starts to. Before you
mm.
know it, you're in this like forward fold. Now, I think you use that kindness and softness, and the body goes, "Okay, I'm safe. I'm safe. I'm safe." And then before you know it, you're deeper into that posture.
Mm,
Whereas, like, if you go, "Oh, the person next to me is a lot deeper in this posture. I'm going to force myself." You go in with a little bit of aggression. All of a sudden, the body goes, "No, you're not doing that." The tendons start to fight back. They give you this feedback saying, "No, we're not going there." So it's about having that, and that's where the physical and the mental comes into it. You
yeah.
know, that's where it comes into it. It's not just about doing some fancy poses that are going to look good on the top of a mountain on your Instagram pose. It's about,
Yeah.
okay, there's a method to this. It's about approaching things with kindness. And then what you do in that posture tends to then work off of the mat too.
It's fascinating, mate.
I would
It really
definitely
is.
recommend it to anyone in the industry.
And I would say I probably know the answer to this as well, but what would you say the impact has been on investing in yourself to your business?
Yeah, yeah. That's obviously everything where you invest time is going to take something away from, you spin that plate, it's going to take something away from there, isn't it? But I would actually say that if you invested, like for every hour you put into a meditation practice, for instance, let's say you did a 10-minute meditation every day, it equates to almost an hour in the week. I will absolutely guarantee you that that 10 minutes that you spend in the morning sifting, acknowledging, like the focal, the clarity, everything that will bring, that just that 10 minutes, I'll guarantee that that will bring in an hour more of productivity per day.
Mm,
Because so many times, I don't know whether you've gone out the door in a hurry, you forget this, you forget that. If you can just collect yourself, go, all of a
mm,
sudden, mustn't forget that today. Okay. Even if you want to jot these things down, that little 10 minutes that sometimes
yeah.
we think that we haven't got, I'll guarantee that I'll pay that back.
There's such a big focus, James, isn't there, in construction about time on site? Or, sorry, hours on site.
Out on site, yeah.
And it's all about that, got to be there from 8 till 4:30 or 8 till 5 or 9 till 4, whatever it might be. Um, which is bizarre because the focus isn't on productivity. It's not about what you get done. It's about how long you're there, which is completely alien,
Yeah,
really.
yeah,
And you see people so often, particularly lads who are on salary or lads who are on day rate, eking out those last couple of hours. Or
yeah,
there's no point being there.
yeah,
It's a complete waste of time. And I think what you're getting at there is kind of that. Really, is that actually you can invest in yourself by taking an hour to invest in yourself. You might actually gain double that back at work through
yeah.
increased productivity.
Yeah, I mean, that one always used to make me laugh because I guess I was always quite a fast worker. I think it's probably easier to relate when I was doing the plastering work,
Mm,
which, I mean, plasterers do have a bit of a bad name for themselves on site for being the first ones to leave anyway. Um, but I can always remember, I mean, I don't know about yourself, but I don't smoke.
no.
And sometimes I can go a day without even, I'll forget to drink, I won't eat. I'll just
Mm,
get to site and I will work and it's back to back. I'll could do a good sized room in that time on my own. And I'll think, right, 1 o'clock, I'm going home, going to the gym. And people, oh, what time is this? And but at the same time, they've
yeah.
stopped all day
Yeah, yeah,
long,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
they probably only just like masked up a skirting board. I don't know, but it, you're comparing a completely different thing. You're
Yeah.
comparing two different things, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, look at what I've done. Yeah, don't
Mm,
look at like the hours I've been here, and it's about
yeah.
working smarter, isn't it? And yeah, if you can get that productivity up, I think the only way you're going to do that is just by being a bit more collected. I do know that when I live in a reactionary state, that's when I make mistakes.
Mm,
When it's like, you get that call, you're still on for tomorrow. Oh my God, didn't write that one down,
yeah.
you know. But I'll guarantee that if you can spend that time, just be a little bit more collected. I mean, the idea of meditation isn't just to sit there and just to go, oh, that's come up, I'll remember that. But just having those little moments of clarity, it will just bring that calm and things will just become a little bit easier. Things just fall into place a lot easier rather than being reactionary.
Mm. I mean, as a teacher of it, if there's anyone listening who's been interested in what you've said, what's a good first step to get into exploring mindfulness, yoga, meditation?
Yeah. Okay. I would say that. I mean, you can look into just having a little quiet meditative practice, like meditation practice of 10 minutes on your own. I prefer silence in meditation myself,
Mm.
but you can find guided meditation. It can kind of take the edge off it to begin with.
I guess if you frame it from the point of view of a complete beginner, never meditated ever before, doesn't know what it means particularly, you would, I guess, you'd need some sort of instruction to tell you what you're looking for, what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my teacher, for instance, his name is Jonah Kest. He's brought out recently. I love it because I give it to my students. But he's brought out a really great guided meditation. It's on Spotify.
Okay.
Go into that. It's an hour, but it's
So
a little,
say that one again, mate.
yeah, Jonah Kest,
Kest, is that Kest?
Kest.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
great teacher. He's done this great meditation, like guided meditation on Spotify. It's in modules, so you could kind of just take 5 minutes today. That's
Okay.
enough for me. It's really nice little cues just to go
Mm.
through, and then you'll find that after a while you could kind of pretty much just do it on your own without that. That's
It's
for the
like learning to ride a bike, mate, isn't it? So you need the
Yeah,
stabilizers to
absolutely.
begin with.
Yeah, but it's about just staying present with it. Just staying present. Don't. It's not a time to just shut off.
Mm.
It's actually becoming like hyper aware. I would say that the yoga practice is a really really nice thing to add. However, it's not necessary. You don't have to have that. But a really important thing to add here is that if you were going to go to a yoga class, just try one out that's in the local gym or something that's in your area. If you go to one and don't like it, please don't think that you don't like yoga,
Mm.
because there are so many different styles. It's just about finding the one that resonates with you. And I think if I was to go to my first class and kind of just go by that, I probably wouldn't have gone back again.
Is there a good one to go for as a beginner, like a first time?
I would say that for your active listeners, I would say that to look for like a vinyasa style, because they're going to feel like they've had a bit of a workout as well.
Okay.
So that's like a vinyasa. To look for something like that. You're going to feel like you've come out of a gym. You feel like you've had a
Mm.
bit of a workout. So it's like quite a strong style. For guys who want to have something a bit more restorative, bit slower, you've got like your yin yoga. Then you've got like your beginners yoga classes. But I try not to go down the road of having like beginner expert. There's kind of no such thing. You're always a beginner,
Mm.
and wherever you are at your time on your journey, your part of your journey, there's always room to move. And it's not about comparing to that person there. You might have physical goals that you might want to get into a certain pose, and that's all really good to have, but it's not about that. It's about the discovery
Mm.
along the way. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do for like self-practice classes. And with the classes, there's also the really valuable thing of when you meet the people in the class, the other students, there's always going to be other people you can sort of there'll be, it's like we were saying about the building trade, always people to talk to.
Mm.
Might have gone on a similar journey to you, somewhere you can sort of, I don't know, meet new people. Um, my yoga page is called Urban Medicine,
Okay.
and
Is that on Instagram?
yeah, on Instagram, Urban Medicine.
Urban Medicine. Go check it out.
I do post little bits on there from time to time. But again, I do put some fancy poses on there, but it's really not about that. And I think sometimes, again, on the Instagram, it's easy to look at the poses and think it's
Yeah.
all about that. But there's something a lot more deeper going on underneath.
It's a lifestyle, mate, isn't it? Rather than anything else. And what I'm picking up from you is that's it. You're pulling all these pieces together with the mindfulness, the following your heart, the yoga, the meditation. It's a way of living rather than like a gimmicky one hit. Oh, I'll do this once a week. It's a way of operating 24/7.
I would say, if you're going to use the analogy of like tradespeople, I would say that it's almost like a carpenter having a toolbox. At the beginning, you've got his empty toolbox,
Mm.
and along that journey, you build these tools for each job. So each technique has its own tool for that job. Like coping mechanisms, about being like not non-reactive, and they're all tools that we will use on a daily basis, and not just at work, but to live by.
Yeah.
So it's about like building these tools up. That was how I'd say it'd be like an easy way to
Makes sense.
to liken it.
Absolutely, mate. A question I haven't asked anyone for a while, actually, mate. So you're the first one to get the question for a while. But I've tried to ask most of the guests that have come on the podcast, because the reason I set this up is to combat the mental health crisis within construction, horrific statistics around male suicide, and the fact that construction's the worst industry in the UK for male suicide figures. We're 4 times more likely on average to take our own life than a man in another industry. What I've tried to ask all my guests is why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's a really, really sad statistic, by the way. That really
Yeah.
hits, yeah, doesn't it? That hits hard. I think you brushed on it earlier about saying the solitary working.
Mm,
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that's the case for me. I love time on my own, but I definitely do feel that it does do something to you. You know, that time on your own. Um, having, you know, there was a lot of stress on you. You
mm,
know, again, finishing trades especially, a lot of stress on you. A lot of unrealistic windows as well. We all get that as well. You know, this job's going to be finished by 25th of December.
yeah.
It's not going to happen. No, it is, you know. And then at
Mm,
the end of the day, what happens is all the people at the beginning, they didn't care about our deadline.
yeah.
All the ones at the end, it's crowbarred into that. You know, this is really, really tough. I guess finances, that's another thing that came up today.
Yeah.
That all comes into this too. And just about how you deal with that pressure and that stress. You know,
Mm,
you could use that pressure as your driver. You know, they say that diamonds are made under immense
yeah.
pressure. I guess it's about how you use that. But at the same time, I'm not belittling anyone who can't deal with that pressure, because that's
Mm,
also, you know, something that's very, very difficult to do. Um, I think it's such a mixture. I don't think you can like just nail it on one thing. I would love to be able to nail it on one thing, because then we could just go to that source and
yeah.
try and work on that. But
Completely agree.
I think it is just literally this, like all of these factors
Yeah.
coming in. Um, yeah, that's a really, really sad statistic. You know,
I completely agree with what you've said, James. I've asked everybody that because I think everybody has their own perspective. I don't think there's an answer, because I would like to think if there was an answer, then we could do something about it. You know what I mean? If it was one element of construction, you could focus on that and try and improve it. I think what you've said is perfect. It is a combination, and that combination is different for everyone. And I liken it to the analogy that it's never a knockout punch from life. It's a combination, and it will be a combination of solitary working combined with maybe a relationship breakdown, combined with maybe drink and drugs, lead into the relationship breakdown. Then you're trying to cope with that while you're solitary working. Then your standard of work might drop. So then you might have financial constraints. You might start earning less. You might be battling customers that aren't happy. And it's this perfect storm
yeah,
of one thing leading to another, leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. And
yeah,
it's my own deduction that it's that spiral that leads people to that point where they decide that they can't see any other kind of way out.
absolutely. I think the main thing we need to do is spread awareness around it. That's the biggest thing. Once that
Mm,
awareness is there, just surround it in awareness, surround it in knowledge. Let people know that they've got somewhere to go where they can talk to other
yeah,
people. This I can see this myself. I see a lot of people. It's become okay to talk about it
yeah,
like this. What you're doing here, it's incredible. You know, people are kind of reaching out, and you know, it's not always positive. It can spread in different ways,
mm,
but there's definitely this big awareness. Um, and then I think, yeah, so it's not just one silver bullet, is it? It's going to be just kind of, sorry, that's the other thing that spread to mind. I think it's about, like you said, about the drugs and drink as well.
mm,
I've noticed, I don't know about yourself, but I've noticed a lot more people wising up to this a little bit more. Like, I didn't hear of a lot of people going out on New Year's Eve and having a ton of drinks this year. You know, I
mm,
thought, oh, that's interesting. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people did, but less people. And I've heard of a lot of people going sober and doing this like dry January. And
yeah,
I think, and by the way, I'm not saying that like, oh, drinking is bad. It's not my place to judge what's good and
mm,
bad. I personally only see bad things that come from it, and I choose not to drink for that reason.
mm,
But I do start to see a lot of awareness around this and wellness. I start to see a lot more people caring about wellness. I think that can only be a good thing as well.
100%. Yeah, yeah,
And I think in the way that there's not just one avenue to go down, like a silver bullet, I think if there is these like little bits that are creeping in, and yeah,
mm,
using social media in the right way and approaching things with kindness, that can only all kind
mm.
of try to combat it at least.
I think education and knowledge is so important. I really do, and it's these conversations that will spread that. Because, like you said, drink and drugs. I think you're right. People are becoming more aware around it. It's not that the culture's far from reversed or stopped. I think the construction industry has been known for having a large drink and drug culture for a long time, and it's, lads work hard all week and then they party hard all weekend and then they do it on repeat. But I think if you can get that knowledge out there, it's not necessarily going to stop people, but as long as they understand the why, I think that can be a game changer in terms of, if you have gone out and partied all weekend and you've drunk and you've partaken in whatever you've partaken in, and then on Monday morning you feel shit, there's a lot of people previously that would have wondered why. As obvious as it seems to me and you, would have woke up and thought, well, there's something wrong with me because I did everything society tells me to do. I
Yeah,
went
right.
and enjoyed myself at the
The norm.
weekend. I partied. I'm meant to go and enjoy myself and be social, so I did. But now it's Monday and now I feel like crap, and that means there must be something wrong with me. The knowledge increase now that people can go, well, yeah, I did party hard the weekend. I'm feeling crap today, but do you know what?
It's
It's
going
because I had
today.
a skinful on Saturday.
Yeah,
So at least they know it's not that there's something wrong with them.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
that their life choices have led themselves. And then that then spirals to lead to that life choice of going, actually, I'm not going to get wrecked because I know then Monday, Tuesday, I'm going to have a crap week.
yeah. Absolutely.
So,
I will add to that though. That I mean, although this kind of like took a little bit of a turn, I said about the drink and yeah, drugs. But actually, one thing I will add to this is that in the occasions that I know people that have, sadly taken their own lives, um, you know, I'll be honest, I had no clue about drink or drugs involved in definitely in one of them situations. And I'll tell you now that I had, well, we had no idea what was going on. I mean, when I heard about one of my friends taking his life, we had no clue. Like, and it was such a shock. Like, are you kidding me? Really? Like him? I mean, I could understand some situations, and I think one thing that I would like to say is that is our duty to check in with people. We've got to check in, even if there's no hint of something going on. Like, oh, I haven't heard from so and so in a while. Let's check in. And this could be another factor. Perhaps where we've got social media now, where we feel that we're so connected now, like we say that we're more connected than ever. I think actually for like proper relationships, like checking in on people, that's actually diminished because
yeah,
like I've got family who like we'll see each other at
yeah,
we have like an annual Easter egg hunt. We see family and we're like, oh, you've been doing so and so. Yeah, I saw it on Facebook. And you think that's not a way to check in. Like, really, we should be like giving a
yeah.
call, picking up the phone, like, how you doing? Like,
You're right, mate. It's a really good point. It gives you a false perception of connectivity and
yeah,
closeness. And I had a similar thing myself just before Christmas. I went and met up. I've still got a good circle of friends that I went to school with. Met up. We always meet up before Christmas. Went out for a curry. There's about 15 of us. And there was a good example of it there because I sat down and there were lads there that I haven't spoken to. Probably some of them probably all year. We have this, the one meet up. A few I speak to a bit more often. Some that I don't. But we sat down and everybody knew everything. It was like, oh, I saw you've been doing this. I saw you've been doing this. And there was a piece of me that went, we've never spoken about it. You've never reached out and
no,
said, like, oh, how's that going? Or messaged me and gone, oh, mate, I saw you did this the other day. How was it?
yeah,
It just gets, there's a bizarre, and from their point of view, it'll be like, oh, yeah, well, I'm not ignoring him because I know what he's doing, but
yeah,
I don't know that they have shown any interest. I guess
yeah,
that's the point.
yeah,
From a egotistical point of view, and there's ego in all of us, I'm not aware that anyone's checking in on me.
yeah, yeah,
And that can make such a big difference to people who are struggling, is that knowledge, that little text message going, all right, mate. And even if it is in relation to Facebook or whatever other social media platform, and just go, all right, mate, I saw you've been to the beach today.
yeah,
How was it? Did you have a good
yeah,
time? Or where did you park?
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It's like just that little acknowledgement where you're saying to your mate, I'm keeping an eye on you. I'm seeing what you're doing, because it can feel like you're in a bit of a black hole
yeah,
otherwise when
absolutely.
you're not aware that maybe 100 people have looked at that post.
No,
Um, it gives a bit of a false perception,
yeah.
doesn't it?
even better, a phone call. I mean,
Yeah.
how lovely is it?
Well, that's a
A phone
dying
call.
art now, though,
It
James, isn't
really
it?
is, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
sadly. But that little phone call can mean so much.
Mm.
We have like a little family WhatsApp group. So on there, it's like, oh, happy birthday, Nan. Da, 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 da. It almost feels like, oh, done our duty now. We've wished
Yeah.
happy birthday. No, do you know what?
Pick up the
What
phone.
have you been
Yeah.
up to today, Nan? That can mean a lot.
It's a fascinating observation on society for me. It's one of the reasons I love podcasts, because you tell me another circumstance where I could have met you for the first time today, you would have turned your phone off and given me 100% your attention.
Yeah.
Just doesn't happen, does it?
No,
You know,
it doesn't.
to actually sit down and have a conversation with somebody that might last an hour, it might last 2 hours, it might last half an hour. The reality of that these days, it just doesn't come about, you know?
Which is so true. I think it Simon Sinek. I think someone did a talk a while ago, and it was about, if we're at this table talking right now, but even if your phone
Yeah,
is there, even if you face it
yeah.
down, you're thinking
You're not
he's
giving
not
me
100%
100%.
with me,
Yeah.
And I think you're right. There's a lot of value in that we are here and just
Mm.
it's just us two, just talking 100% of each other's time. So yeah, I love that.
It's one of the reasons podcasts are becoming so popular, or are so popular. I mean, you look at arguably the biggest podcast in the world at the moment. It's a Joe Rogan podcast. 9 times out of 10, that's him sat with his mates for 3 hours just having a laugh. And I
Yeah,
think that's human connection that we're craving. That's why so many people listen, because you can put a podcast in your ears and you become part of the conversation,
yeah,
almost like you're a spectator.
yeah.
And we're craving that as a society. We're craving that like connection, that interaction.
It's real. That's what it is, Ross. And this is why I love what
Mm,
you're doing here, because I don't feel like it's no interrogation. It's like we're just here chatting, and
yeah.
yeah, you're right. I think people want that a little bit more, and that also intertwines with that kind of when you see videos now, like you see that raw grit. It's not
Mm.
polished. It's like there's some realism in there.
To me, there's real value in it, mate, because it might just be that there's one person out there, and that's all that matters. If it affects one person that takes a little bit of value from what you've said today, it could be any part of the conversation. I won't know what it was. You might not know what it was, but you might have just said something in a particular way that has made somebody go, ah.
Yeah,
And just that little recognition, I liken it to planting seeds. You might have said something that maybe it might have planted the seed in the conversation, and then weeks down the line they go, remember what James said about that actually. And it's those things that provide all the value in this to
yeah,
me. It's
yeah,
genuinely, for me, it's not about having X amount of thousands of downloads, followers, listeners, whatever. It's if it can help one person,
yeah.
then the whole thing has been worth it.
Absolutely, that's golden. I think it was literally at the end of the year. People are sending messages to each other and
Mm,
Happy New Year, and I hope you have a good Christmas. All that. Had one guy who reached out to me. He said, I wanted to just say about this. You said something once, and that really made. I'll be honest. At the time when I didn't even remember saying it to begin with, but
mm,
I looked into it. I thought, oh, what that? And he said, yeah, that really, really resonated with me, and I want you to know that I made some little changes there, and I thought, wow, yeah, you don't realize it,
mm,
do you? Like you say, and it's not about the followers. It's all totally irrelevant. But I mean, for
mm.
yourself, it must be lovely if you can think, that someone there took something. Yeah, that's got to be.
Definitely, it's everything about what this is about. In fairness, it's a weird situation to be in, because I say it's not about the followers, but I need the audience there in order to make that difference.
Yeah, to spread it.
So it's a case of getting the podcast out to people so they know it's there, so it can reach that person that
Yeah,
makes that difference. Because if nobody knows it's here, it won't make a
yeah,
difference.
of course.
So it's this weird balance for me where I'm like, on one hand, I need to promote it to get the listeners to try and make that difference. On another hand, it's not about that. It's
Yeah,
about helping people.
yeah,
So it's a weird, a weird balance. And I feel like, me personally, you'll see the clips I put out. When I first started doing those, I had a real internal battle, because I was like, it's just clickbaity. I'm sort of taking a 60-second part of the conversation, which you ain't got all the context to. And is it disrespectful? Is it? And I had this battle for a long, long time. I've made peace with it now, because I know that the reason those clips go out is to try and gain people's interest, to then pull them into the whole conversation. it's a necessary evil
It's the
when it
gateway.
comes to it.
It's the
Yeah,
gateway. No, this is exactly what I'm saying about the the poses on the Instagram page.
yeah,
We'll do the poses because I'll be honest. If I did a boring pose of I don't know, just a blank screen, and then said,
yeah.
"Oh, these are the benefits of meditation," people go, "Oh, bore off."
Got to
Like
grab the attention,
I
haven't
want to
you?
look at the next
Yeah,
thing. But actually, if there's someone in this like pose where I'm like tied up into a pretzel, I was like, "Oh wow, like what's this
yeah,
about?" Like, but then I'm saying, well, it's not about the pose, but
yeah,
you know what? People are interested in that. They want to see the
yeah,
pose, and then all of a sudden, on the back of it, then they
yeah,
start to maybe like there might be something in that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's the
That's
same.
it.
It's the
And
gateway.
you have to, again, you have to recognize that society is evolving. The way people take on information is evolving really quickly. People's attention spans are lower than they ever have been. So
Hmm.
you've got such a short window now to grab their attention, to go, look, come over here, just have a look at this.
Yeah.
So it's adjusting to that and pivoting to it. And same thing with marketing in business.
Mm.
You've got such a small attention window now.
Well, we're just so overstimulated.
Mm,
Algorithms are against us all the time. These platforms. They want this now
yeah,
to be visible, and
yeah,
it's all changed, hasn't it? So, like you say,
yeah.
you've got to grab that attention.
And so quickly it's evolving. What works today, this time next year won't work.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And it's becoming its own beast, unfortunately.
Mm,
We could have a whole conversation about social media,
yeah.
James, couldn't we?
Well, I love what you're doing here for that reason and the style that you're doing it, and
Really
I really love
appreciate
that.
that, mate. And I'd really appreciate you being a part of it. Um, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to get out there, as it were?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot there. Yeah, really,
Yeah, I
really
think so,
happy
mate.
with that.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
value in that.
yeah,
Yeah.
good, good. I'm
Well,
glad.
mate, on that note, then, it has been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to go and study meditation and yoga this year. That's my, do you know, I hate New Year's resolutions, mate. So I hate to say it, but I said at the end of last year, because I'm very aware that I've put a lot of my time into growing this. And the thing that has took a back step is my own personal health, really. Was always I was in the gym a lot, trained a lot, and all that kind of thing. And it's that has took a back step. So I need to reinvest in myself more this year.
Yeah,
So it's one of the things that I'm going to be focusing on.
which is quite ironic because being the advocate
Oh,
for
tell
what
me
you're
about
doing,
it, mate.
it's,
Just do as I say. Do as I say, not as I do.
it's always the case, though,
It
right?
is, but do you know what, mate? I'll caveat it. There is a bit of truth to the fact that sometimes things have to be out of balance to grow, particularly businesses. I don't
Yeah,
think it's possible to launch a new venture or a new business and be in balance.
yeah. I think you're right
It's
with that. Yeah,
there are times, and it's having that skill to know when to step back,
yeah,
when to push and push and push, and then go, okay, I need to. You can take your foot off and put it back on
yeah.
again, but it's very difficult to. I couldn't have established this whilst running my business that pays my bills
Mm,
and been in balance and trained and kept my gym routine,
no,
kept my nutrition on point. There's only
no.
so much of me to go around, and kept my family happy,
Yeah,
kept
that's
my
right.
relationship
Spinning
happy.
those plates,
Yeah, yeah.
just and it's about
Has to, for those, like I say, that time period of growth, I think it does fall out of balance.
yeah,
I don't know, I'd love to know a way to not do that.
yeah.
So
But maybe that will come up in your meditation.
maybe, mate, maybe that's one I'm going to lean into for sure. But listen, mate, thank you, massive thank you for coming up today. I know you've had a long journey, so I really appreciate you being a part of this. Just one last time, let everybody know where they can find you.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. It's Hikitia Surface Design for my Venetian plastering. And we've opened the Venetian Plastering Academy in Rochester for anyone wanting to learn to get into the trade. Maybe just do like a foundation to see if it's for you. Sometimes we're running open days there. And if you're interested in any of the yoga or meditation, then it's urban medicine. Thank you.
Wicked,
Thanks for having me
James.
here.
Appreciate it.
Really appreciate
To
it.
everyone listening, thank you very much for listening. I always forget to say this, but please like, share, follow, subscribe to the podcast. It does make a difference. You just take, 10 seconds, hit subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. What it does, it promotes the podcast, puts it further on those algorithms, puts it in front of new people that might benefit from the content of this thing. So please take a few moments to do that. It'd be massively appreciated, and I will catch you soon on the next one.